Bye. Welcome to Speak with Eve. I'm your host, Eve Eurydice. And today's guest is my dear friend, Chanel Margaux. Chanel is a model, has been a model, even though she's in her early 20s, has been a model for a long time now.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, Chanel.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here speaking to Eve, who's been my second mom since I was probably like 6 years old.
That's right. That's right. So
I love it.
I've watched you grow up, and I've watched you become the woman that, you know, you're becoming, more and more beautiful every day.
Thank you.
Also I've seen how much work, you know, and dedication and commitment it has taken for you to pursue this calling.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, which is modeling, influencing,
a little bit of acting.
A little bit of acting, yes, thank you.
You know, all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I will say, you definitely did add to my performing arts growing up, because you would always drive Fotini and I to our 100 million dance classes,
yes.
recitals, plays,
yeah,
you know, bring us to art shows. Like you definitely like did contribute in me finding like my passion growing up, and always giving us that freedom and, you know, that space to even like stealing your clothes and having fashion shows, which, by the way, Eve has the best closet on the planet, filled with the best designer vintage, which made me like, I think that's like what drove me to become a shopaholic and obsessed and addicted with designers and everything. So she definitely was my fashion icon, and definitely, you know, showed me a whole other world to something I'm like deeply obsessed and in love with.
Well, it was another century, and we very much feel it as another century, right? So, you know, beauty has become, you know, like super filtered and loaded now, and it changes really quickly. It seems that, you know, it's hard to catch up. I mean, fashion always changes in the sense of like trends, and you know, that's the job of fashion, right? You want to have that constant change, and you're catching up and recycling. Oh, that's her
other children.
What has changed so much is that beauty has become more culture driven than just nature, you know. So like from the beginning of time, the female body, the young female body, was like the ideal of beauty, right? And the sense of harmony, and that was connected with like reproduction, you know, procreation. Our first job in nature is to reproduce. So this kind of, you know, obsession with beauty is natural to us, because that's how we get inspired, motivated, and you know, driven to reproduce. And that's when nature makes us our best, when we're also our most fertile.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that, you know, like reproduction, procreation was a mystery, made the feminine, the young feminine, so much more, you know, kind of like magnetic and extraordinary, because it was impossible to know how this one person becomes two, right? Or three.
Right.
Like just, and it felt like magic. And in a sense, it still is magic, even though we know like the scientific explanation of it. But so we have had like millions of years where we're attracted to what we're attracted, you know. I mean, the word beauty is kind of like a cultural ideal, but also very much what seems, you know, attractive to our eye. And I feel that with the digital age, which is really, you know, come on like full force in this millennium, in this 21st century, our sense of beauty is very much filtered by our experience of the screen,
right,
and by our experience of otherworldly, you know, ideals, like let's say MAGA, right? Or avatars. So it's not simply based on like the human ideal of that era and of that culture and of that like civilization, but something other that's not quite human.
Right.
So that's, I'm thinking I have been thinking about that a lot, and I've been thinking therefore about the future of beauty. What beauty is becoming, how it's changing in a way that is also changing humans, like evolution wise, right?
Completely, yeah.
So I'm curious about your experience, how, like your experience with the body and the screen, the body and the viewer, and also, of course, the industry. Has the industry changed? Is the industry asking for completely new requirements that weren't really, happening before? And the financialization of it all, how that has changed too. Because there was no influencing really until, the end of the 20th century.
Well, I will say one thing about all of that. One thing that before social media ever came into play, the model industry was completely different. How people marketed, how people presented themselves, even the environment of the industry, is completely different. Just me and my experience, my first fashion show that I did, or any first photo shoots, was with charity organizations. And in a way that was influencing, in a way that was another way of marketing to bring to a cause. Influencers, social media are influencing either product or awareness, or, even like a big campaign like Louis Vuitton. Who would think Louis Vuitton would have a social media campaign? But back then, that was my way of giving back, involving myself, but also doing something I love to at the same time. And that's kind of like how I really fell into it unintentionally, just by me saying I want to do a good cause, something that I thought would be great, and it did. Like, we helped so many people.
Yeah, I remember. And that was just
through,
shows. Yeah.
You came to them probably, you and Fotini, or like I did it with the Children's Hospital and the Humane Society, which I ended up adopting 2 little schnauzers. And that to me was like, thinking about it now, that is kind of like an influence in a way on people. We brought that into something else. And, now we're in a whole other wave of social media that does play so much into people's careers and launches careers. But I do agree, generations change the way we think of beauty, what we admire on people, the type of person. Even big movies, or a wave of like sci-fi or Roman history, those all in a way, dive into what's in style, whether it's makeup or hair or clothing, or the way you present yourself on the internet to others. So I think I definitely, growing up, as I got into this industry, being so young, I really started at 16. I didn't really have a self of identity, and fashion and modeling helped me find my identity in a way. And I was able to test limits on what I was comfortable with whether it was self-expression or makeup or the type of photos I would like to take. I made mistakes, but I also learned from them, and it brought me to where I feel comfortable in what I identify as, which is like, my style. I kind of figured out like who I was. Fashion, I also feel like, is a way for you to present who you are in a way. It's self-expression. It's makeup to me. It's like we're applying art on our body.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And, as an artist, I'm sure you can relate to that. Your famous eyeliner all the time.
Yeah.
Your stylish clothing, which is all your clothing. Like I said, Eve has such an amazing vintage closet. But these are all unique finds. These are all kind of rare finds that also express so much of like who she is as a person. The type of colors also affect people's mood when you see them. Sometimes I love looking like an alien. I'll do like kind of sci-fi clothing a little bit, you know, like whether it's like metallics and, you know, these kind of alien shades, and I'll try, or my poses, like I'll, you know, be a little quirky and a little weird and a little creepy and a little sci-fi. But then other days, you know, I want to feel like pretty, and I'll put on a sundress and do my hair light and curl it and take a photo in front of a sunset, whatever. But I feel like fashion is a way to express your mood, to express who you are. And I do agree with that. It does change throughout decades. And my experience, basically my conclusion, what I'm saying is, after being in it so long, I can see how history and trends come back and how we incorporate how we can modernize it today, how we express ourselves as kind of who we are inside, or trying to find who we are. And I think that's going to continue on as the world's become more accepting. And I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know where fashion could head, because it can head in a million ways than anyone could ever expect.
Yeah.
I mean, Kim Kardashian wore an all black outfit to the Met Gala, and everyone still knew who she was. That was an art. That was a statement. And yet again, who would ever think of designing that? But it was genius. You know, so yeah, I do think I would love to see technology more involved in fashion. Like Chanel did a collection with light up bags, and they were cool and they were so sick. And I think as we continue on, I would like to see, and I feel like we would see more of technology in fashion.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm ready for the Matrix.
I'm
ready for the Matrix.
Yeah, well, I think we're in it.
Art has influenced fashion so much. And also like who we are. I'm someone who loves art. I love art.
Yeah. Well, I mean, personally, I have always found fashion liberating. You know, like it gets me out of the stranglehold, you know, of my culture, you know. Like in Greece, there is a certain way to dress. Everybody kind of looks alike. Everybody wears the same color palette, you know, that European look, right? So when I lived in India, I transformed and I wore like embroidered, multicolored silks and, you know, saris. And when I came to Miami, I started wearing like Southern, you know, Palm Beach, colorful outfits for the first time. So I think that it is a way to let us know that we are not limited by how we've been raised, by how we have been taught to think, but what we're told is right and wrong. You know, it's a practical and like embodying, you know, way to assert some sort of originality and do it again and again and again. Because I feel that when you get stuck in a look too much, then you're just saying, okay, I'm not in my body anymore. I'm only like in my mind or my whatever it is, you know, my work. But I am not changing, which I think is unfortunate, because we can only grow by totally changing what we have been, you know, what we're doing, right? What we have become accustomed to. But I am thinking that our understanding of beauty is becoming harder to define, harder to kind of like, you know, understand in the most fundamental way, you know, because there is so much interference from technology. There is always interference from like the, you know, advertisers or those who want to sell, right, or brands, all of that, right. But this is something else, which is hard for me to put my finger on. But I'm thinking you must have a kind of like a way of understanding what I'm saying. Well, one change is like small brands come up all the time and have the ability to kind of get a lot of attention, even if it is, you know, short-lived, thanks to social media. And they're able to use, you know, young models who want to make it somehow, right, and haven't been discovered. So that is definitely one thing. There is also the input of like cosmetic surgery. So the body, well, you know, from Kim Kardashian, who is famous for it, to, you know, the, you know, women in like Brazil, you know, who no one will ever know of. But, you know, there is a lot of like kind of like non-natural, man-made change to what is beautiful. So there is a different faith or trust that what we see is real, right? And we live in a world where we don't know exactly what's real and what's true. Like, misinformation or fake news or fake math, right? Everywhere. So, and I think a lot of that is the influence of the internet. So how does that affect what's expected of you, as a model, and how the beauty standards are that you kind of like are compared to are changing or staying the same, and your commitment to the industry, right? How do these changes affect that?
Well, I do think, and thank goodness, as I got older, the industry has changed a lot compared to how it was a couple of years ago. I will say, when I first started, I definitely had a different view of modeling on the type of model you were expected to be, what people expected of you, which was being very sick, skinny, drinking juices and only eating salads and doing, there were so many limitations. Like, well, if you're not a 5'9" model, you can't walk a runway. You cannot do that. You're 5'6", you can't do high fashion because that's only for the super skinny and tall girls, or even telling plus size models they can't do something, or short girls, or people are specifically hiring a specific race or demographic. I'm so happy and grateful we're getting to a place where we are moving forward and becoming more accepting of everyone. And there's a place for everyone, because that's true. Beauty is different in everyone's eyes, and everyone truly is beautiful in their own way, whatever it is. I do think I was affected going into modeling, like, oh, I'm not tall enough. Oh, I don't look like this. I don't look like that. Why don't I have sharp, cheekbones? Why don't I have an hourglass figure? Because I was always very boxy. I was like, why do I have an hourglass? Why can't I ever be on a runway? Why can't I be on high fashion? Why are they telling me I can only be a slim model because I'm tiny and, I'm fully developed and I, have boobs and a butt. You know what I mean? Like, I never could understand and accept that. And thank God stuff has changed where I've been able to say, I've been on a runway. I finally got to work with high fashion brands, and I just kept getting the no's and no's and no's. Even getting one is such a big deal to me because I was so rejected of it for so long. So even just having one brand that I love and admire and respect, the fact that they would even take a chance on me, even now, I'm so unbelievably grateful, because I was told you can't do that because of your height, or this or that, like a million things. I remember people telling me your nose is too big, your neck is really long, you're not curvy enough to do this and that, stuff like that. It's like you can't. I think it's so damaging to someone.
Oh, it's so damaging.
Who can't do anything. A change right then and there. Like, oh, you don't like my nose? All right, let me fix it right now.
Right?
Like, no.
Yeah.
That's insane. And the fact that agents tell girls this younger than 18 is disgusting. And I'm happy to say I've seen change as I've been in the industry. That makes me feel more confident in myself. That makes me feel, I belong in this industry, and my flaws are this specific standard. I'm able to achieve my goals because no one's really really fixated on that so much anymore to fit the specific criteria.
Right. Yeah, and the extreme, like pound by pound weighing, of models, and the stories we used to read of, young models taking drugs to lose weight, facing
starving
assault,
themselves,
right, and then losing their agency and becoming prey to like older men, which was kind of like as a result of either that insecurity or being high, and again, like when you're so young, I mean, youth is beautiful, period.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. but also, our minds do not develop at the same rate as our bodies. The more kind of like stuff there is for us to learn with our minds, like the digital world, right? The slower the maturity of our minds becomes. So in the past thousands of years, our minds develop slower and slower, and our bodies still like on natural time. When you get your first period, you're more or less fully developed, right? So there is that's almost 10 years lag between when your mind fully develops, which is around 26, to when your body fully develops, which is around 16. So the industry wants you at 16. Yeah. And of course, it's not made clear that, what you're capable of, what decisions and choices you're capable of making at that age, right? So you're given full agency as if you were a fully grown adult. And I think a lot of, the horror stories that we've heard of young women becoming, being taken advantage of, are the result of that, So as we know more, like knowledge, which has been spreading, has helped kind of like overcome some of all of these, taboos and inequities. Mm-hmm.
For sure. I mean, thank goodness people are paying attention to how unsafe the industry was for such a long time. And I mean, thank goodness for the Me Too movement, thank goodness for that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, definitely. I mean, it's a hard industry, especially going into it at any age, but specifically when you're young and you are already so, I can't really speak for others, but I can say like just as a teenage girl, I was already insecure to begin with,
Yeah, of course.
I didn't know who I was.
We're all insecure when we are, we're like, suddenly we have this body. It's like, whoa, like yesterday I was a kid and now I'm like hot.
Yeah. I mean,
what? Yeah. Like, you don't know what to make of it yourself.
Yeah. But, at that age, like you are naive to an extent to many things.
Yeah.
And, it's hard. It is hard to be in that industry young. It is. You don't really know what's okay and what's not. And at least now we have the resources and people have come forward to say, if this happens, that is not okay. Even the way an agent talks to you or what you're expected to on set, like we have contracts for a reason, like I would hope that every agency, every model, anyone that's even curious about getting involved, whether you're a model, photographer, even designers, like just educate yourself on what is acceptable, what is not, read the contracts and just respect people, like it's a lot to put yourself out there in front of a camera. There's a lot of trust that goes into every single person on that team, whether it's hair, makakeup, photographer, the editing, the designer, the clientele. How are they going to present you, to their clients? It's a lot of trust that goes into it that you need to have, and also you need to be secure with yourself.
Tell me a little bit about influencing and how it works. Clearly it's very different than anything that had happened in the industry in the past. It kind of very tentatively started during the supermodel era, but now it's just like anyone, especially with TikTok, right? And I'm interested in what you how you think that's affecting the future of branding, right? And of big name fashion. So let's start by giving our listeners like a basic explanation of what you think influencing is, how it works, does it make enough money, for creators, and then like could it spread and become a big enough trend that it would affect the industry in a fundamental way?
Oh, I think it's already doing that. I think that has been a thing for at least the past couple of years. I mean, the term influencers, people with a big platform, a platform that and how I kind of related to is kind of like you're kind of like a billboard in a way. And, social media has become such a big billboard for brands in a new way that reaches out to people all around the world who are not, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, or using a creator who can take your brand, create something that applies to their brand and launch it, and it attracts a whole different audience. And those people can see your brand in a different light from this creator's eyes, what that creator does with their platform, how they could bring a brand or a charity or even a destination to go travel and visit. I have done all three. I've worked with brands. I've worked with charities. I've gone on vacation and shared the places I've been to and the hotels and the food. And, I always try to put out things that I really do believe in, things that I think work, and things that I think other people would enjoy. So I try sharing that, that information in the best way I can. And, I think it's just only going to keep going further and further and further, but it's also so dangerous because of social media. So many people have the accessibility to have a big platform that they could use that could be pretty damaging and can allow people to spread false rumors or false things that probably aren't the best to be sharing for millions and millions of people. So I think it can work in both ways, for good and evil, honestly, given to the right person who wants it, or how to. I think the biggest thing is you have to have the responsibility and capability of having a platform and making sure that you are presenting and influencing people of the right things. For instance, I don't think diet teas are the best thing, Weight Watchers and this and that, for young girls to think that's okay to take. If they, unless this is coming from a doctor, don't listen to someone who doesn't have a degree. Don't take things that you don't have a lot of study or research on. That's kind of the only advice I can give to people. If you're listening and getting influenced by people with a platform, at least know what you're getting yourself into before you buy anything.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, and, so I think it's good and evil for the future and currently.
Right. Our inner judge is really our worst enemy.
For sure.
If we could figure that out, right? So you are more beautiful than you think. And that's impossible to understand with your mind, but it's the truth. And I agree with you. I think, a lot of the products that we are all using, in the pursuit of some kind of perfectionist ideal that's not real, we're going to pay for. Whether it's in 10 years or 15 years or 30 years, there will be a price to pay for everything that's unnatural. It won't come for free. So we kind of now think, it's if it's medical. And if we're okay with going back to doctors and medicines to fix more and more problems as they arise, that's fine. But in a sense, we're getting ourselves further away from our balance in the natural world, So the more natural everyone can be, in their looks, in their food, within reason, the more natural, the safer. I think, and everything in life can be good and bad, depending on excess, how much, you do it and all of that. I think that the risk with influencing is that it's hard to know when you get a lot of likes or when you go viral, whether it's truly because you are admired or whether there is you're an object of whatever, ridicule or just kind of entertainment or gossip, right? And it happens so fast, social media in general is so fast that you can't be left behind. So there isn't enough space. When I make a work of art, I make a draft and then I take weeks, sometimes, a couple of months, and then I look at it again to figure out what I did and where I want to go with it.
Yeah.
When I write a book, it's years.
Right.
I throw everything in there, and then it takes me years to decide slowly, like what out of all these ideas I'm going to stay with, right? Well, with this, social media world, there is no time, because then you're going to be left behind, right, by the algorithm. So I think the speed with which everything is moving is kind of like the risk. I think that a lot of like creators, inevitably will end up saying and doing things that they might not have if they had enough perspective, enough time to kind of like sleep on it and plan it and curate it and all of that. So I don't know, as a result, I don't know what the lasting power of it is. Like in traditional artistic media, ultimately what we would go for is longevity, to create a masterpiece, right. Posterity, right? To leave it behind for the generations, right? So that's, social media influencing is still so young and new that it's hard to know how that applies. But I do think that, kind of like following the mood, of the crowd is both kind of elevating and also dangerous and risk-taking. Like, it could drown you, it could pull you under, because there is just like, the audience is so vast and invisible, and ultimately they are in charge. If by nothing else, by their attention. Do you get the attention you seek or not? Because without their attention, right, that's the main commodity. That's where, right, the influencers, power comes in.
Right.
Yeah. So what I do like about it is the ability to kind of change our people's minds, in ways that are not decided by the men. Like you have people who you wouldn't have access to, like people who don't believe in the vaccine, or, live the van life, or, there are all kinds of like anti-mainstream, sources that right. become influencers. And I find that really positive, and fascinating. And a lot of them are not so easily controlled by the, corporate, like global corporate regime, right? The advertisers, because they can make money from like much smaller brands, or brands that are not necessarily, that have everyday products that are not so, advertising driven.
Right.
But yeah, I am interested in how this huge change in our interaction with the screen, with models of beauty, is changing us, in real time. And that's what I mean by like the future of beauty. Like in your short experience, it has changed already so much, right? So
yeah.
At this rate, we can only imagine how quickly things can change. I mean, TikTok has been around how long now? Not that long, and it has already changed. What was happening with like Instagram influencers, for example, or Facebook. I mean, Facebook, which isn't that old, but now seems like a dinosaur.
I do think in so many ways there's so much like good and light in it, because it gives people, like you said, small businesses the opportunity to go on this platform and their life can change really overnight. I am constantly seeing small brands behind their stuff, reaching out, just trying to help other designers, being like, let's collab. I'll post their clothes, buy their clothes, and trying to help out. And you get to see people and I've met so many people, and really it's expanded so much for me in finding people, finding brands, finding recipes. obviously I've had, many experiences with social media, but in a lot of ways it has affected me in the best way, even as these platforms keep growing and growing, because I get more exposed to things that I wasn't before. That's a place where I can practice my photography and post and edit and, and express myself. And I have a safe place where I can be creative and also learn and express myself and connect with my family and my friends and share my experiences. And also it helps with my career in the long run, which is amazing. And also it's kind of a nice photo gallery, which I can to and look at these specific parts of my life that I share, these beautiful photos of people that I love and cherish memories. And, I hope it does keep expanding in the right direction. So our lives can improve and we can, we have more resources, more accessibility to things that we've never seen or heard or get to learn, and also stay connected to people that we've met across the world and see what they're doing.
Yeah.
I will say I do not know how to cook. I'm a terrible cook, but because of TikTok recipes, I'm actually becoming kind of decent because they're very easy and doesn't take that much time to cook. And now I'm like learning, good recipes and good stuff. And also that's where I find my music. And also TikTok, like I literally, when I use Instagram as a place where I can, like my Explore page is, if you don't know what Explore page is, it kind of just recommends you things that you would like or relatable people or pages that you follow. And I love going on there and I get to find all my interior design stuff, like inspos or shops that relate to the photos that I like, like, oh, I really like that share on that one photo. Oh, this is where I can buy it. Stuff like that. And TikTok, like I said, like I can search fall trends and see like, oh, these boots are really cute. This is a thing right now. That's cool and neat. Or even a style I would never even think of putting together, like using lug warmers for my everyday life with like a mini skirt. And I'm like, wait, that's so pretty. That's like that's like ballet, like a ballerina. What was like one trend? Or like I saw a girl use like belts, as a choker. And I'm like, or use 1 million belts to make a skirt. It also like shows you new ways to style and use things. So, but again, like I signed up for social media when I was 12 years old. I am now 23. And the fact that I've kind of been, like a guinea pig for social media, and even, I don't know if I would say rise with it, but I did rise with it and became an influencer. Yeah. And seeing it like grow step by step by step, while I also changed and grew with it. It's amazing to see how it's affected my life, my everyday life, and so many things that I do and use. So yeah, I mean, I do think it has changed and evolved with us as we are changing and evolving with it. So
yeah. Yep. And it's kind of like a democratization, because like couture has always been for the super rich, that's what it does. It's been this way since like the time of the royal courts and right. So it pays for itself that way. But you can now have such an amazing experience in fashion without even bothering or thinking about like the few pieces that are coming out, early on, pre-season and what you can exclude yourself from that and still have a very kind of like, an experience in the front lines of fashion, thanks to social media and this kind of like faster churn.
I'm lucky to have a platform where I get to express myself, and I now want to be more involved in charities. I want to bring awareness to stuff that I feel really passionate about. I want to help more. I don't want to just be a pretty face on my Instagram. I want to change that. I want to make a business, but I also want to help others. And there's so much I can do.
Oh, yeah.
I have somewhat of an impact, and I feel the responsibility of having it and being given it. I need to use it, for good and stuff that I can resonate with.
Yeah. So thank you, Chanel. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your beautiful story. And thank you everyone out there for listening and for being with us this week. You can find Chanel on all social media under Chanel Margaux. It will be in the notes. And until next week, keep speaking beauty and love and Eve.
Perfect.
If I could make love incessantly, I would be God.